Islam doesn't allow you to debate. In fact, in Quran it says that if you are going to debate, means you're not accepting it. But you must accept, if you're a good Muslim, you don't ask any questions. I grew up with and understand the mentality of today's Shiite elites in Iran. I believe that Islam prevents Muslims from thinking the very thing that God gave everyone, that you're allowed to think, you're allowed to spread your wings, you're allowed to study.
Many Americans think of Iran as a hardcore Islamic fundamentalist state, but my guest today says there's a basic split between the country's current religious regime and the nation's Persian past. He also takes issue with America's foreign policy toward Iran. George Hassan is here. He's author of Iran, Harsh Arm of Islam. Great to have you here today, George.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
My pleasure. As I say in the opening, I think there is really a lot of misconceptions among the American public about Iran. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have?
I believe perhaps the first one would be that most people in the West think that Iranians are Arabs, and which they are not.
They're not.
They're only like 1.5% of the total population of the country are Arabs, and there are Arab clergies who are in the religion.
So what's everybody else?
Everybody else, almost over 90% of our Iranian Muslims, and there's Christians. The Jewish population, although it's dwindling now because of this, after the revolution, they were kind of persecuted and problems. Sure. And there's some Baha'is and Zoroastrians.
Now, what is the distinction between the Persian and the Arab culture? You talk a lot about that in your book.
Yes. The Persian culture is very distinctive. It started like 3,000 years ago, and in Persian history tells us that 3,000 years ago, or 500 years before the birth of Christ, Iran was something like United States today. The minorities, they were Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians, which was predominantly main religion. They lived in harmony, side by side, and they were often they participated in each other's celebrations and festivities or festivals, and they even carried gifts and help out. The advent of Islam in the 7th century meant an end to that harmony, to that interfaith with people. And Iranians have, they kept their culture. When Islam came, like in Egypt, for instance, they lost their language, and then Iranians, they kept the language. They started having people like Ferdowsi, and which was a great poet, and to keep they start writing books and to keep the language.
Now, you really say that most of the great intellectual accomplishments. You said there was a museum in Paris that had an exhibit on Islamic culture. You said no, actually it was Persian culture. Or you say that really most of the great cultural achievements were Persian, or actually from other countries as well, but not really Islamic.
Not Islamic, no. They have used the word Islamic culture or Islamic arts, and these are mainly for Persians. And some of the items that they have in that museum of in Paris, Arab Museum of Arab are from Iran. They are from even India and Old Turkish, pre-Islam. And the Arabs at the time that they brought Islam, they were not sedentary. They were not the people who built something, who had built homes or schools or art. They were actually mostly mounted on their horses. And and they were kind of raiding one village to another. That's how they survived.
Marauders.
And then the idea of building a monument wasn't even conceived. They couldn't even.
So when you hear about a lot of the great accomplishments, then you feel that that's, or other Persians feel that it's really, that they've appropriated other cultures or other, well, yeah,
Yes.
accomplishments as their own.
Yes, indeed. Many like foreigners, they go in Iran. They look at the huge monument, which is a mosque or a shrine or something beautiful, and they think this is Islamic, which actually the Arabs who built, or rather ordered to build, they themselves they had no idea. It was a Persian architect. It was a Persian Iranian people who know how they built, whether they were Christians or Assyrians, not the Arabs who were
So
in
really
Iran.
everything was built by outsiders or
But
somebody
outside,
else.
even today, if you look at the places like Dubai, for instance, which is growing, it is built by foreigners and is maintained by foreigners. No Arab was endowed by one time a good, maybe I shouldn't say the good, a knowledge or to build something, to become a scientist. And they were not. And throughout the history, when you look at the history, it shows that they were mostly tribes and mostly the Arabia doesn't. There is not one single river in Arabia, or to say that well, okay, they built homes around the like Persians who they built homes around the rivers, and so agriculture started. Where in Arabia the rainfall is less than one inch per year, and mostly so there is no. They never built anything to stay. They were always on their horses and camels.
Indeed. So above and beyond the cultural issues, so you said that there's a word, am I saying it right, nekbat?
Yes.
That the Persians use.
Yes.
That there are three, basically, that means catastrophes.
Yes, indeed.
And what are the three great catastrophes according to the Persians?
Excuse me. Iranians believe that the word nekbat, which connotes all kinds of catastrophes and calamities and bad things, and that you put them all together, they call it nekbat. And there are three nekbats in history of Persia, Iran, and the Iranians believe that the first nekbat was when the Arabs in the 7th century they attacked Iran and they brought with them Islam. They came in the name of jihad, by the way, and that's something that they say that today I heard that many people in the West say jihad means your inner fight, or you fight with yourself for the betterment of mankind, and it's not true. Jihad simply means that it is a holy war, and you go to kill. And so the first nekbat was in the 7th century when Arabs attacked Iran and they looted the country. In fact, Iran was instrumental, or that the wealth in Iran helped them to spread Islam to other part of the world. And then they raided, they killed, and they took slaves. And Iran didn't know anything about the slavery or slaves, and the Arabs did that.
So they introduced slavery into
yes,
the country.
indeed. And that was the first nekbat. The second nekbat was during the 16th century, where a tribe leader by name of Shah Ismail I, he was a fanatic Shiite. He started the war. Through brutality and killing, he became the Shah, or the king, controlled the whole part of Iran. And he started a war with Ottoman, which were northern part of Iran, like in Turkey, and then also he wanted to convert all the Iranian, who they were Sunnis at the time, into Shiites. So he invited all the Arabs who were Shiites to come into Iran, and he in fact facilitated their journey, and then he helped them, and there were soldiers and people who were marauders, and people who were actually they were killing, the killers, and they came and they overkilled Sunnis really, and in order to convert them, and that was the second time. And the third was the Khomeini's revolution, which is Iranian, they call it Nekbat revolution, catastrophe, or climate.
So needless to say, you're not too popular in Iran
I'm
with the
not.
government.
Yes, indeed I'm not. They don't like, in fact, Islam doesn't allow you to debate. In fact, in Quran it says that if you are going to debate, means you're not accepting it. But you must accept, if you're a good Muslim, you don't ask any questions.
So you're either with us or against us, or yeah, if you, anybody who dissents, you're an enemy of Islam at that
Yes,
point.
indeed. A good Muslim is a good embassy, someone who is doesn't use his brain, someone who doesn't ask questions. That's a good Muslim.
We'll be right back. And we are back with George Hassan today talking about his book, Iran, Harsh Arm of Islam. So the reason I was asking you about the nutbases or the catastrophes that you were describing is that, obviously there's a sense then that Islam was something imposed on the Persians that they weren't very happy about. So what religion are the Persians then, or would they be without Islam imposed on them? Or, I mean, did you have the full range of,
Yes, the Iranians were at that time, at the advent of, or the time that Islam was imposed upon them, they were Zoroastrians or Zoroastrianism, which is a very simple religion, and it fit that the needs of Iranians well those days. It's a simple religion. It says, good deed, good thought, or rather, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. And anything we do, Iranians believe that it fits within 24 hours, whatever it fits in one of those three. And so it was very simple.
I never realized that's where that saying came from.
Yes, indeed, they were. And then Islam, for Iranians, Islam, first of all, is in Arabic, a language that they do not understand, never understood.
You said even to this day, a lot of the Persians don't like the
they
Arabic
don't, yeah,
language,
they have never been able to reconcile themselves to the foreignness of a religion or a foreign religion.
Because they speak Farsi as the...
Yes, indeed. All this, the language is Farsi. In fact, during the pre-revolution, the Islamic Revolution, there were schools that you could go and learn English, French, German, other languages. And the revolution, when the revolution came out, they stopped those. They only teach Arabic. And they believe that because Quran is in Arabic, so you should be able to understand it, you must study Arabic, and it's mandatory now. And throughout the centuries, they always fought that religion. They fought the Islam. But then they got kind of submission came by reputation that they couldn't do anything, and Islam actually kept Iranians from learning academic with some better thing.
Well, and indeed, you said there was a lot of course, during the revolution, a lot of oppression or abuse or execution of artists and intellectuals and dissenters or even military. I mean, basically anybody who, well, didn't just passively accept it, apparently.
Yes, indeed. Even Mullahs thought that if you were even thinking, just conceive the thinking that you might be a problem down the road, they got rid of you. At the beginning of the revolution, they were not able themselves to look into the eyes of Iranian eyes and shoot them or kill them. They imported people, Arabs from Palestine and Lebanon, to kill Iranians, to execute Iranians. And they did that day and night at most of the Shah's armies and hierarchies, and even down to a corporal or a sergeant, a soldier. They killed them, and they got rid of them. And then they started by getting rid of the journalists, people who were writing, people who were deep thinkers, people who were in schools such as teachers. Little by little, at the advent of Islam in the 7th century, it took them 200 years to get Iranians to empty that culture that Iranian had and put into some Shiite thing, which is like a shell. And here, now it took him probably about 30 years. Or
30 years. So I should say you are Muslim.
I am. I was born as a Shiite Muslim. And
And you were born in Iran.
I was born in Iran, yes. And I grew up with and understand the mentality of today's Shiite elites in Iran. And I believe that Islam prevents Muslims from thinking the very thing that God gave everyone, that you're allowed to think, you're allowed to spread your wings, you're allowed to study, you're free to do this and that. Islam does not allow you to.
Now, is it just the hardcore fundamentalism, or are you saying that there's almost a fundamentalist element of it by nature? That
yes,
that there is no like moderate, that if you are the true Islamic, then you are just really hardcore fundamentalist, or that there can be a more moderate?
At this time, there aren't any moderate. They are all mostly, yes. And they want the Iranians to obey or do what they say, which is oppression. They're trying to promote the Arab culture, Arab ethos in Iran. They tried that for been centuries, but now because they control the country, they are doing things that, for instance, they're getting rid of, at the beginning of the revolution, they would not allow for newborn child to have a Persian name, which is like Farhad, Khosrow. They wanted Islamic name.
Renamed the streets, I think, in cities.
Indeed, they renamed towns, streets, and all monuments, whatever they, and then
destroyed monuments from other religions.
They did indeed. They some of the even Islam does not believe in a three-dimensional art. Let's say you have a sculpture or something that, but because they were afraid that people go back to the time that they were praying.
Worshipping.
Yes. And so they destroyed that. They destroyed it in Iraq, and they destroyed it in Afghanistan, and we know that. And then in Iran, they have not destroyed. But what they did, they sent out most of the Iranians. There is they're taking steps to eradicate the Persian nationality and nationalism.
There was also in the sense in the book, I told you I was reading this on the beach in Florida, and it was quite a contrast between the sunny, beautiful day in Florida and really the, some of the oppression and the abuse and things that you talk about. But the idea that you really described it as sort of a gloomy religion, at least the way the fundamentalists were practicing it, that there were no happy days, that every day that was either, crying or moaning or wailing. Granted, there's fundamentalism in all religions, but you do have a really kind of a bleak sense of that they took any fun holiday and turned it into a day of sorrow. Is
yes,
that accurate?
Indeed. The history shows that the Persians, before the advent of Islam, they had several celebrations or festivities of days. One of them is called Jashn-e-Mehragan, which is the autumn during the harvest time, and people come out and celebrate, and all these occasions, all these celebrations are taken away by Islam. There's only one left, which is a Persian New Year, and even that they try to replace it with some crying, mourning. Islam believes in Shiite Islam. I'm pretty sure the others are somewhat close to a similar, but Shiite is totally that you have to cry every day of your life for it.
So is the government out of touch with the people? And if so, why can't they do anything about it?
Okay, yes, indeed, government is out of touch with people, but the people, they cannot speak for themselves because there are over close to 400,000 police. There are postars, besiege. Nonetheless, there are police who suppress people, who are, if they feel that they come and knock on your doors at midnight, and then they take you for questioning. And if you're action has been kind of severe, or they believe that was against their revolution, their family would not see that person again.
Never seen again.
Yes. So they have through they have they grounded themselves on a three pillars, so to speak, and how they stayed in power. One is that total oppression or absolute oppression of the people. The second is that they export terrorism all throughout the world, which is that they do. And the third is that unfortunately Europeans are helping them, countries are, because of the need for oil, whatever, they are friends with them and they're helping them. So these three pillars have kept them.
We'll be right back. And we are back. Joining me now is Jeff Schweitzer, author of Beyond Cosmic Dice, Moral Life in a Random World. Great to have you here today.
Good to be
again,
here.
Jeff.
Thanks.
Well, I know, George, that one of the points in your book has to do with America's foreign policy toward Iran. Certainly that's one of the more, America's blamed for a lot of things. Either they did or didn't do the right thing by supporting the Shah or not supporting the Shah. Your take is that it was a mistake to take the Shah out of power?
Yes, I go along with most Iranians, not just the secular population, but
so most Iranians, you think,
that they believe that the Carter administration, unfortunately, that they kind of pulled the rug from under the Shah's regime, and by not knowing who is to replace the Shah, not knowing these people, not knowing their adversary, they made a mistake. Because
they were raising human rights issues, there were the concerns about what the Shah was.
Indeed, that's what it started, and in fact, in most of the human rights organization, including the one in England, and that they were daily, they're trying to tarnish the Shah's, Iran's image and the Shah's image throughout the world, and they did a good job at it too.
And indeed, you think that Iran has ended up in a much worse situation today because the Shah is gone? Is it?
Yes, not knowing what is the agenda of, or rather, what these people who are coming to replacing, what do they have in mind? What do they have in mind for the world, for the Iranians, and not knowing that created a big problem. Shah's regime wasn't exactly democratic. It was maybe a semi-democratic country. People had more freedom, especially women who had a taste of freedom. And then when Khomeini came, of course, that took that away from them. And women in Iran are more, they took the blunt of the
and that's a whole other subject in itself. Jeff, what do you think of America's foreign policy toward Iran? Was it a mistake to get rid of the Shah?
Well, our foreign policy in Iran is a mess, as it is for the entire Middle East. But it goes, it starts well before the Mohammad Reza Shah. It starts really in 1953 with the Eisenhower administration. There was, at the time, one of the major revolutions in Iran, the National Constitution Revolution, the Nationalist Revolution. And that was started by a gentleman by the name of Mohammad Mossadegh. And he came to power because the Iranians were being basically occupied by the British. And the British had appropriated all the Iranian oil. And he, on a wave of nationalism, came to power, and he was very popular. And he instituted a great number of reforms in conjunction, as a secular government, in conjunction with the clerics. Well, at the time in 1953, it was the height of the Cold War, and Eisenhower only saw the Middle East through the very narrow perspective of stopping the expansion of the Soviet Union. And in the western of Iran, there's these Zagros Mountains, which are a natural barrier to the expansion of the Soviet Union to a warm water port in the Gulf.
I should tell you, Jeff, we've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're running short on time.
So what that means is that we basically installed, we took Mossadegh out of power and installed the Shah's father as the Shah. And we then, by doing that, created enemies, not only with the clerics, but with the natural population. And virtually all of the hatred that we see in the United States now can be date back to 1953. And from that, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon, and Ford and Carter all have made the same mistake in that region by not understanding the difference between the Shia, the Sunni, and the relationship between the secular government and the clerics.
Do the Iranians hate Americans?
They do not. They do not. I had a good seat in political. I used to work as interpreter back in '70s and '50s, and then they loved Americans. They love to emulate the John Wayne and the American democracy and their freedom. That's why most of the Iranians they left the country. They came here for.
And especially in Los Angeles, too.
Yes, indeed.
I'm so sorry we're out of time. Thank you both for being here today. George Hassan, the book is Iran, Harsh Arm of Islam. Jeff Schweitzer, thank you again. Jeff, book is Beyond Cosmic Dice, Moral Life in a Random World. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.